Australia. You've heard her, you've seen her, now you see her. Sharlene Lynch is a multi-passionate entrepreneur and a veteran workshop facilitator with 30 years experience. You actually don't look, that old, trust me. With 30 years experience in business coaching and a background in accounting and holistic psychology. Speaking with us today from Adelaide, South Australia. She's a chief of speaker tribe in South Australia and holds a position of Australian National Tribe. Sharlene is a vice president of Healing Through Love. Wow. A not-for-profit organization that provides pamper days for women impacted by family and domestic violence. Please welcome Sharlene Lynch. Wow. Sharlene, anything for men?
Hello, everybody. Wow. What if I told you you can be, do, have, and share everything your heart desires? You just need to do two things. Hands up if you'd like to know what those two things are. That's every hand. You need to start with a vision of what your life could look like and then follow up with the decisions to make it all come true. It sounds easy, and it is, when you understand what's in the way between where you are and where you want to be. To move through that space requires change. And change just doesn't seem to come easy for humans. And that's because we're not programmed for change. By the time we're 7 years old, we've spent 7 years in theta brainwaves. This is a beautiful place of dreams and imaginations. And it's a place where we're easily programmed so that we can learn the rules and regulations of how to live on this planet. By the time we're an adult, we think something 70,000 thoughts a day. And 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts day in and day out. And if you're over 35 and a quick scan of the room shows that most of us are, 95% of those thoughts are subconscious. So you can see it looks like we're not designed for change. But what if? What if we can shift? What if we can shift and that shift only needs to be 1%? I'm sure you remember the story of Roger Bannister, who in 1954 ran the 4-minute mile. Ran the mile in under 4 minutes. Now that was supposed to be physically impossible, but he only won by 1%. It was only a 1% shift. 6 weeks after Roger ran that mile in under 4 minutes, his record was beaten. And now to date, something like 1,500 athletes have run the mile in under 4 minutes. So something that was deemed to be physically impossible has obviously been done. And that's because of a shift. I'd like to share with you my mind shift that happened one cool September night in 2011, when I came home from a birthday party to let my son know that I'd come home early. And I went to his door and knocked on his door and there was no answer. And I yelled out to him in true mother style that I'm home, and he still hadn't answered. So I asked my partner to go around the outside of the house and look through his bedroom window. He's probably gaming and wearing those headsets, as kids do. When you're 17, that's what happens. And that's when we discovered that my 17-year-old baby boy had hung himself. I raced to the door and I kicked the door down and I took him down and I tried for 15 long minutes to resuscitate him, all while praying for a different outcome. The ambulance officers came with their hands fully laden with equipment and they ushered me quickly out of the room. I stood outside of his room, breathing so heavily, so fast, and praying for a different outcome, that they would be able to revive him when I couldn't. When the ambulance officer came out of the room, he looked at me. I know he said something, I couldn't hear him, but the look on his face was enough. I could tell. They weren't successful. I crashed to the ground, still praying for a different outcome. I heard one word. That word was forgive. When I was able to stand, the ambulance officer asked if I'd like to say my goodbyes to Scott. And I went into his room and I laid on the ground and I rested my head on his chest. And I said, Scotty, mummy loves you. I love you so much, baby. And I forgive you for your choice. What I didn't know is that by forgiving, I had made that shift. I had moved into a different space. My healing journey had begun. Later on that night, while I'm sitting on the lounge room chairs and the police officers are conducting their investigations, I'm staring now at my giant cup of coffee, which is going cold. And I said out loud, I thought I said to myself, but I said out loud, I'm not just going to survive this. I'm going to thrive through this. That's what Scott would want. Later the next day, I found a spiral bound notebook and I started to write out everything that I was grateful for. And again, another energy shift, moving into a place of gratitude. I wrote for pages and pages and pages to remind myself of the things that I was grateful for. One day, I only had one thing on my list, and that was that the sun was shining. That was a very, very hard day. Now, some 8 years down the track, I have gone through the process by starting with forgiveness, by making that decision, and by continuing the frequency change, by lifting my gratitude. I have shifted from where I was to where I am. I shifted out of a crippling mental illness of hoarding and got rid of some 33 cubic meters of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. I shifted and moved out of a disabling self-harm OCD disorder. That was something else. I've shifted and chose to live a healthy life and became a vegetarian, and I've lost 25 kilos. Pretty happy about that. And I shifted and I moved away from a 30-year-long addiction to alcohol. I am now being sober 57 months. Yay! Very happy about that. So the shift begins. The shift begins with forgiveness. Who do you need to forgive? It might be yourself. Then the decision needs to be made. And then continue the frequency change with gratitude. Let me talk you through the shift process. Shift starts with S. S is see the big picture. I wrote down for pages what I wanted my life to look like. It looks like this. If you write down what you want your life to look like and it doesn't feel like a huge stretch, it's not big enough. Start again. It needs to be huge, massive. It needs to be uncomfortable. The next letter is H. H is hone in on reality. Now you got to get real. What's really happening? I was a hoarder. I was overweight. I was an alcoholic. I was self-harming. I was not in a good place. That was the reality. There's the gap. Where I am, where I need to be, that's what I need to work through. The most important letter in shift is I. I stands for implement quick wins. If you don't start with quick wins, you'll self-sabotage. Your brain needs those quick wins so it can rewire. So find a quick win with weight loss, with whatever it is that you want to move through, find the quick wins, implement quick wins. F stands for focus on the patterns because they're everywhere. And T stands for take massive imperfect action. My name is Sharlene Lynch. I'm a speaker and thought leader on MINDSHIFT. Thank you.
Shalini, you actually moved, I don't have words, you actually moved, you really moved, so I cannot be in that different energy right now. You actually move with your story. So no words, it's just fabulous gripping. It's just fabulous. So, I have no words. And I cannot judge you. I cannot have anyone to, even a lot of sugar keeps for you. God bless you. You give, synonym of standing tall, giving strength to people. And then superb. Sorry. Very touching story, very, very gripping. And what you're doing is, it actually takes a lot of, strength to what you're doing. It actually takes a shift. Yes. Thank you. And we honored, we are blessed to have you with us.
Thank you.
We're really honored to have you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And we also inspire as tribe leaders. We also inspire to follow you. You know, how you've been shipping up things, taking up things. And you're an inspiration for all of us. Thank you. Thank you, Sharlene. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, guys, a lot of sugar cubes. I'm sorry for these emotions, but then, you know, it's very gripping, very, very, very touching. Thank you. Thank you.